Hi guys. So my latest trick and what you're going to be using to finish off our pizza is adding the texture effects. This is super important to making your pizza look realistic. Here is mine over here. Without the textures, it's it's somewhat interesting. You can definitely see the depth of the different areas, but it certainly doesn't look realistic. Once I add the textures in, it actually absolutely makes a huge difference in how realistic the overall thing looks. You're going to kind of have your mind blown, I think, a little bit by the textures that I'm using to get these effects. You'll notice that my pepperoni, cheese, sauce, and crust all have different textures, and they all look, I don't know, some are better than others, but I think they look pretty realistic. The crust, let me turn off my layers one by one so you can see. So there's my crust layer. I think that looks really, really crusty. Looks very much like a piece of bread or a pizza crust. I think that's quite convincing. My sauce layer also, I think, looks very, very convincing. That really does look like, chunky tomato sauce on a pizza. Here is my cheese layer. Totally different look. This is supposed to look like gooey, greasy pizza cheese. And there is my pepperoni. Now, how in the world did I get all those textures? Well, I'm going to start with this one, since it doesn't already have any textures. And I'm going to show you how I did this. It's very simple, but there are a couple of tricks that if you don't follow the steps, you're going to get lost. So the key here is first finding really good textures to use. Okay, so my go-to place for textures is textureking.com. Okay, textureking.com. This will work on your Chromebooks and will go through our school filters, so it should work just fine. TextureKing.com has really large, high-quality textures. They're all free, and over here on the right side, they are categorized into different categories. I found, I believe, all of my pizza textures, believe it or not, in the stone/rock categories. I might have also used concrete at some point, but I will show you. So I'm looking for something I can use for my pepperoni texture right now. Pepperoni is kind of rough, but doesn't have any really specific patterns on it. So what I'm looking for here is a pattern, or excuse me, a texture that has kind of some weird, random sort of roughness to it. I'm going to go back. I think I'm going to use, let's see. I think I'm going to use this guy right here. So find a texture that you like, click on it, and then click it again, and that'll open the full-size version. Now, pepperoni, obviously this looks nothing like pepperoni. It's a picture of a sidewalk or something like that, maybe even sand or gravel. I think it's a sidewalk. But you're going to be amazed how effectively this works. And so it's very simple how this works. Watch this. I'm going to click with two fingers and choose copy image. Okay, I could save it, download it if I wanted, and then reopen it. But the easiest way by far is just to choose copy. So click with two fingers, choose copy image. Okay, now I can go back to Photopea. I'm going to go to either my edit menu and choose paste, or press Control V. Okay, in this case, I'm going to put edit, push edit, and then paste. Before I do that, I have my pepperoni layer selected, so that is also important. So I'm going to go to edit and paste, and there is my texture. Now, what the heck happened? It filled up the entire screen. okay? What that means is my texture is bigger than my picture, okay? So I need to, before I do anything else, I need to resize my texture, okay? There are several ways you can do this. The easiest way by far is right up here at the top. I'm going to use my move tool, which is this this arrow that's over here at the very top of my toolbar. This is my move tool. It lets me move that layer around, okay? When I have my move tool selected, then up here at the top, one of my options is transform controls. When I turn that on, I get a little box that I can stretch and change, okay? So I'm just shrinking this texture down so that it's a little bit bigger than my pizza, but it doesn't need to be as huge as it was. So I'm just squishing it down a little bit like so, okay? Once I get it the size that I want, I just press enter on my keyboard, or up here at the top, press the little check box, check mark. Okay, so now there is my texture. Now what the heck? It still doesn't look like pepperoni, obviously, okay? Here is the magical part, okay? So look over here on my layers. You'll see that my top layer is my texture. The layer right below that is my pepperoni, okay? And all that I have to do is make sure that my texture layer is on top of the pepperoni layer. So above the texture, above the pepperoni is the texture. It has to be right on top of it. It doesn't work if it's like got other layers in the middle. So I want to put the texture directly above the pepperoni, okay? And then I click with 2 fingers on the top layer, in this case, the texture layer, and I want to choose the option here that says clipping mask. Okay, what a clipping mask is, you'll see when I do it, boom. The clipping mask makes it so that that layer only shows up inside of this layer. So if you look closely, you'll see that my layer 1 now has a little arrow pointing down, and it's kind of indented in a little bit. So all the other layers are right here, but this layer 1 is kind of scooched over and it's pointing down to this one, okay? And what that shows me at this is that this top layer is clipped inside this layer. So in other words, the texture shows up inside the pepperoni, okay? It already looks better, but now the color is really goofy. It looks like I've got little rock patties sitting on my pizza. Not exactly appetizing, okay? So the last thing I'm going to show you is right here at the top of the layers, what is called the blending mode, okay? Blending modes are right at the top of your layers, and the blending mode determines how one layer blends together with another layer, okay? Right now, my blending mode is set to normal, which means that this rock layer is covering up my pepperoni layer, okay? So I can't actually see the color of my pepperoni layer because the rock layer is on top, okay? But what I'm gonna do is, instead of normal, I'm going to switch that and I'm gonna change it to overlay, which is right here. And watch what happens. Boom. Just like that, I have pepperoni. Amazing, okay? Now, overlay is not the only option. I can go through here and play with the others. That looks like moldy pepperoni. I can go here and play with the other options and find one that I like. Generally, I find these guys right down here work the best. So overlay, soft light, hard light, etc. That one, I think, hard light, looks quite realistic. I mean, that really looks like pepperoni, okay? I think this is amazing. I think this is so cool. I literally took some red circles and a couple of effects, combined it together with a picture of a sidewalk, and it actually looks like a real pepperoni, which I just think is too cool. So yeah, there's my pepperoni. Let's do the cheese. So here's my cheese layer. I'll show you again how I did that in case you missed it the first time. Come back over here to my Texture King. So I want to find a good texture that would work well for my cheese. Like what the heck kind of a texture is going to work for cheese? Well, you might be surprised. A lot of them will actually work fairly well. I'm going to go to the one that says plastic. These are all pictures of plastic stuff. And I actually think this one right here is going to work perfectly for my pizza cheese. So you don't have to use the same one that I used. You might find good ones in glass or wood or metals, whatever. In this case, this is sort of a plastic thing, so I'm going to use this. So again, to get this texture, I'm going to click with 2 fingers and say copy image. Copy image. Okay. Back to Photopea. I'm going to make sure I'm on my cheese layer. So here's my cheese layer. Make sure that layer is highlighted. Okay. And then I go to edit and paste. That is going to paste that texture I just found right on top of the cheese. Okay. My move tool again, right at the top, and I'm going to move it down where I want it. Again, make sure that transform box is checked up there at the top, and then I can squish this if I want to make it better fit the size of the pizza, like so. Okay, so that is going to be my cheese texture. Like, how can I think that looks like cheese? It's gray, it's brown, or whatever color, gray. It's disgusting. I don't even know what that is. Well, watch this. Again, right click with a mouse, or click with 2 fingers with your touchpad on your Chromebook. And let me rephrase that. I am on the top layer, which is the texture. Click with 2 fingers, and then choose clipping mask. Okay. Again, what that's going to do is make it so that my texture only shows up inside the cheese. So the texture layer now is clipped to the cheese layer. Okay. So it's in the right place now, but it looks disgusting. So again, I'm going to play with the blending mode. So right now my blending mode is normal. Let's go in there and play around with it a little bit. I'll try the old standby overlay, see what it looks like. Not bad, actually. I mean, that looks pretty cheesy, I have to say. But let me just play around, see what else I can find. Soft light? Nah. Hard light? Definitely not. Vivid light? That's kind of cool. I think that might be the one. Linear, pin light. Some of these look really disgusting. Difference, exclusion. Okay, so we're going to go with vivid light here. You'll notice when I pick my blending modes up here, I don't just grab one and say that's the correct one. I'm actually just going through and having some fun, randomly selecting them, see what the effect of each different blending mode is, and then finding one that I like. In this case, vivid light, that is definitely the way to go. That looks very cheesy, and we're going to go with that. Let's do the sauce. The sauce, back to my textures. Again, I happen to know that, and this is going to sound crazy, but I happen to know that stone or rock pictures tend to work really well for making tomato sauce. And in fact, pictures like this guy right here, it's got all these little chunks of little rocks in it and stuff. That kind of texture tends to work really well for making a tomato sauce. Let me see if I find one that I like better. What about this one? That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what that kind of stuff in there is, but let's not do that one. Let's see what else. Let's do this. So I'm going to use this texture right here. Looks kind of like a chunky kind of surface. So I'm going to use that for my tomato sauce. So again, click with 2 fingers, copy image. Okay, back to Photopea. make sure I'm on the sauce layer, and then edit, paste. There's my rock layer. Okay. You might need to zoom out to be able to see the whole thing. So you can use the zoom tool here and hold Alt click to zoom out, or just click to zoom in. You can also do the pinch to zoom thing like you do on your phone. So I'm going to move my tomato sauce layer into place. Use the control handles to adjust the size so it's just a little bit bigger than the actual tomato sauce. Press enter. There it is. Again, right click on the sauce layer, choose clipping mask. So now my rock is linked to the sauce. It only shows up inside the sauce. And change my blending mode right over here. Instead of normal, our old friend overlay appears again. Let's zoom in just a little bit. That didn't work. Let's try it like this. Zoom in a little bit. I'm not crazy about the way that looks, but if I experiment here a little bit, that's not too bad. At the moment, I'm going to stick with overlay. Let's just try vivid, see what that looks like. No, that's too much. So I'm going to go with overlay. So I now have overlay, please. Thank you. So I now have texturized pepperoni, texturized cheese, and texturized sauce. Last but not least, let's do that crust. Same steps again. Select the crust layer. Go back to Texture King. Now I want to find a texture that's going to work really good for my crust layer. For this, I want something that's going to be more of a fine grain, like really thin. I find dirt and sand works really well for making a pizza crust. So this picture here looks like a picture of some sand on the beach. Right click, copy image, over to Photopea, select the crust, edit, paste. There's my crust texture. It's way too big. Grab my move tool. Yeah, this picture is enormous. So I'm going to shrink it way down to make it actually fit my, my screen. And I don't want the texture to look real huge. I don't want it to look like there's big chunks in there. I want it to look like there is a very fine, sort of floury kind of crust. Okay. Again, right click, clipping mask. Okay. So you can now see it looks like I have a stone pizza crust, which is kind of cool. And then again, to get the color correct, I'm going to change my blending. Right now it's on normal. Let's try overlay, see what happens. Look at that. Looks like a pizza crust. It's amazing to me how effective this is. I mean, that really looks like a pizza crust. That not too bad for the tomato sauce. It looks pretty good. The cheese looks really quite cheesy, and the pepperoni really looks quite pepperoni-esque. Okay. That's it. That's how I do my textures. Now, in case you forget, file, save as PSD. You want to make sure you save that file, and it will appear there. And then I can upload that to our classroom. Okay. Any questions or problems, please shoot me an email, and I will answer any questions. You should start working on this right away. Have fun.